Welcome back, everybody. And I'm John Dupuy, and this is my cohort, Douglas Prater, and this is Meditate on This episode. How many have we done of this, Doug?
I believe we are on number 10.
Number 10. So we have a guest and a friend and a colleague and a role model and all kinds of things today, Holly Whitaker, who is Holly, tell us what you are.
The last time I think I gave you this ridiculous biography. I am the CEO and founder of Tempest, which is just a modern digital recovery, and also the Temper, which is a media outlet that is associated with Tempest. And I'm also the forthcoming author of the book Quit Like a Woman that will be out in December 2019. So, which awesome. I've never said before on a podcast.
All right, good. It's good to have deadlines in my experience because it focuses us and helps us to get done what we need to do, especially if we proclaim it publicly.
Yeah,
but,
that's right.
Holly, your work, we've known each other for a decade now?
No, we have known each other since 2014 when we didn't know each other except for one call, and you invited me to come to your house, and I came to your house in Utah. Do you remember? That was so weird.
It was so spontaneous. Okay, come on. Other people are there. Come on.
When I tell people that story, it's so funny. I was like, yes, I read his book. I became obsessed. I reached out and he offered to have a Skype call, and then he invited me to his home, and I went to Utah and you and Bob and Guy and that other guy picked me up at the airport, and I was like, all right, let's roll.
Who was it? Anyway, I'll
yeah.
But that was a great experience, and you have carried on, and your vision is just fulfilled. And let me just say a little bit about you and see if I've got this right, that you've specialized in recovery for women. That is not a bummer.
That's a good way to say it. I would say I've created a feminine centric model that specifically, everything's developed for a masculine archetype, and I've created a feminine centric recovery model. I would also say it's not just women, it's women identified, LGBTQIA, people of color, any historically oppressed person that's typically left out of the recovery landscape, I would say how I would say that.
Yeah,
that is not a bummer. That's right. That's not a bummer.
No, I mean, that's before you called it hip sobriety, which I thought was really cool because, a lot of times it's like, God, the idea of getting sober, your life's already a wreck.
That's right.
And what level of, of the disease you're into, maybe you clean it up a little bit, or maybe you need a complete redoing of everything. But it's like, oh no, I can't drink anymore. I can't do drugs, which is causing nothing but misery and depression and agony at that point. And I have to change it. And it's like this really just grim thing.
Yeah.
And, I was thinking about this morning when I was meditating, which I shouldn't have been doing because I was meditating.
Don't we all think when we meditate?
I think about you and the Maslow, his ladder of getting the basic survival stuff down. Like, okay, first you have to stop going to that place where you're meeting those people and doing those drugs, and just get that in place. But after that, that's just the beginning of the trip.
The journey. That's right. It's a small price to pay.
Really, exactly. It gets really exciting and really inspiring. And I think that's what you've done so well.
Yeah, I like to think that. I think there was so much desire missing from this side. It's the last place people want to go, and I found it to be where my life began. And I think I really wanted to always keep that message at the forefront. People lose their ability to really dream and see a future. And I think even in the depths of addiction, but even before the depths. And I think that holding that ability to show somebody what's possible is so key.
Yeah. And do you find that because you're teaching this, you really have to live it yourself?
Oh, I think because I'm teaching it, I think I teach what I need to learn. I think that we all teach what we need to learn, right? And so it is a constant struggle for me. Not in my life is hard struggle, just this struggle of, I think, I would say taking apart my perfectionism, allowing really sticking to my meditation practice, allowing myself to be in states of depression, allowing myself to be in the middle of a mess. I think that we can, when I started this, I just thought I had to be on this always upward trajectory, and that if I struggled, this was a sign that I shouldn't be doing this work, and that I struggle is a sign that I should, I believe. And I feel like, I bet you feel the same way.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. One of the fun things I've been dealing with, March 7th, not this last, but the year before, I had a massive heart attack.
Oh my
And
God. I didn't know that.
yeah. So that was interesting. And
Right? Huh. I bet it was.
yeah, and it's still interesting because it changes your relationship with being alive. And
Right.
there's a lot of, I didn't know anything about having massive heart attacks, except that it was so massive, it wasn't subtle. I knew exactly what was happening.
Yeah.
If it's a minor heart attack, you can think of something else. But there was a lot of just, gosh, and I was so physically active and stuff before, and I was so weak after the heart attack, and I've had to build myself back up step by step. And then you have to fear, if I push myself too much, am I going to die on the treadmill, or when I'm
Yeah.
and then the answer is, well, yeah, I might, but so what? I do.
Yeah.
And so I'm now probably as fit as I've ever been. I've worked back, but I've actually also struggled with a lot of depression that you're talking about, the dark phases.
Yeah.
And I mean, those, while you're in it, it's really hard to see how this is going to be something good.
That's right.
Later on, you can see, wow, wisdom, I made new relationships, something.
That's right. You went deeper.
But you begin to trust the process after a while,
You do. You do.
And I knew that I had to meditate a lot. And sometimes when I'm really going into one of those deep, dark caves, I've got to do like a 2 or 3 hour meditation, and then up my practice in that regard.
That's right.
And I get through it. It's like, okay, I'm back. I've processed it. I haven't avoided it. I've stayed with it. So it's just changed everything, and in a painful way, but also I think in a really good way.
I think it's a gift. I think it's a gift to learn how to struggle, right? And not struggle against struggling.
Yeah, right. And Doug, do you have anything to say about that? I know you struggled a bit.
Yeah, that's suffering is pain times resistance. I guess that's Shinsen Young who says that, or I've definitely found that to be the case too. And in my own challenges with things, as soon as I just let go, that's when things start to get better, and lean into it, embrace it, not avoid it. And it's so hard to do in the moment too, but you just have to trust, or I found that I just have to trust that it's going to be okay on the other side. Trust the process, as you were saying, John.
Yeah. And Holly, Doug is another one of those John intuition things. He wrote me this 4-page letter, I think, and it was regarding questions or comments about iAwake technology. Guys that don't know iAwake, I'm the CEO of that. You're the CTO. I don't know. We're a small company. We change hats all the time, but that's his official title. And I think I might have got that wrong, Doug. But he wrote me this letter. I said, it's fantastic. But to answer this, I'm going to have to write a new book, which I should have shut up and done. But I said, no, why don't we talk? And then we talked. And now you're working full time with iAwake. And I'm not even sure if I remember what that process was. But I said, man, this guy is extraordinary. And it was, again, sometimes my gut is just, it's just right on. So.
Yeah, John, it was a real gift to me at that time too. You and I started with a conversation on Skype and said, well, that was fun. Let's have another. And we ended up talking about once a week for a while, just about all sorts of different things, meditation practice and music and writing and the writing process and technology and fitness and creativity and the whole of it. What we were here to do in this world, you and I really connected. It was sort of an intuitive thing for me too. I valued so much the technology that you were creating, and it is something that had always been a passion of mine. I'd been a creator of entrainment myself for such a long time, and I could see through the things that iAwake was doing with spiritual technologies, with the quality of the products that you were putting out, with your newsletters, through the things that you wrote that I had read that really suggested you had something to offer and you were here to make a difference. I knew you were someone I wanted to talk to. In one of your newsletters then, you mentioned integral recovery and the book that you had written, and reading that book, seeing what all the approach entailed, and it paralleled so closely my own experience with recovery and the things that I found worked best for me. And then the embrace of integral theory as a model to help us really understand what's going on in a different way. I just also thought there was really something there and we needed to have a conversation. So I'm glad I did, because reaching out and doing that kind of thing is not my normal modus operandi. That's again, just let go and sort of trust it, see what happens.
Yeah, awesome, Doc. Thank you. So we're so glad every once in a while I get things right. And Holly, I wanted to ask you, it's interesting because the way our work has unfolded, I kind of, once I, did integral recovery and saw that and practiced it and stuff myself, I said, well, this is not just for, addicts. This is for everybody, Some of us lose our shit in drugs and alcohol, and some of us just lose our shit in our shit.
Yeah.
We get stuck in the neurotic, shallow version of ourselves, and we never become the people that we need to be. And that is the tragedy. So whether it's drugs or alcohol or whatever it might be that keeps us from becoming our potential selves, our great selves, is the enemy. And we have to overcome through this thing we call integral practice, where you mind, the emotional stuff, the shadow, the trauma, and of course the ongoing spiritual practice, not a dogma that you accept, which you can totally allowed to do if you want to accept the dogma, just make sure they have a flea collar. No, just take care of them. And no, but we're talking about a practice where you begin to experience spirituality as a living, vital part, not part, maybe who you are on an ongoing basis. And so I was like, this needs, everybody needs to do this stuff.
Yeah, I agreed.
And
very few people have anything that's like acute enough to really push them to make a change like that. I think there's this forcing function of hitting a wall versus like the dull aching pain that just you manage to trudge through and keep going through. And this is where I think addiction presents this beautiful opportunity where it's like an invitation in, because it hurts enough. Even if it's not, even if it's not in spectrum addiction, I think anytime we struggle. And have you read Bruce Alexander's book, The Globalization of Addiction? Have you?
I've heard about it. I think in conversations or interviews. Similar.
Yeah. He's the guy that did the Rat Park experiments. And his entire, do you know Rat Park, correct? Like Rat Park is the experiment where lab rats became addicted to heroin and they were in cages. And then when they went into this beautiful rat park where they were able to roam free and play with their friends, they actually took themselves, they selectively took themselves off drugs, and only wanted to consume water. And so it just, so that's what he's known for. And that's, often tied in with like what happened with Vietnam vets, after they came back from the war and self-selected off of heroin and they came back to the United States. But his book, this is written in like 2008, and it's a book on essentially tracing the development of free market societies and the increase of addiction. And it's such a long book, but it's fascinating in that it traces the history of how we define addiction. Addiction is this, it used to not be a bad thing. It was something that you had given your life to, right? Like something that like you could be addicted to God, and like, an idea like Gandhi is addicted to liberation. And it's just like this chaining of oneself to something greater. And over time, it just slowly developed and came down to something that we have specifically split people up into a small group of, and, related it to drug and alcohol and excluded all these other behaviors and said, these are the people that are really messed up. These are the ones that need help. These are the ones that have lost it, and, exclude all these other ways that we're addicted. And so his whole argument is all of us are addicted, and at increasing rates, and to everything. And this because you see people with their, I watch people very specifically with their iPhones. It's just a thing because I'm so aware of like my own pull to it. I'm aware of my tendencies and my just total checkout and go to the left. And I can always, like, you can just tell the person that can't stop checking their phone. And it's just, that's addiction, right? Like that is that like complete, like checking out, disconnection, going somewhere else, because you can't be with whatever it is that's happening in the moment. So I think it's something that is, all of us struggle. I mean, all of us do. Like any Buddhist text will tell you that everyone struggles with addiction.
Yeah, my dog Lucy, when my wife Pam is in bed, she'll look at things, she'll come and knock it out of her hand. Hey, I'm here. Life is here.
Holly, you mentioned a second ago about lumping this group of people into a category and saying, well, you guys are the ones who are really messed up. And
yeah,
I want to know, or I want to ask you about how that factored into sort of the model of your own recovery program that you're developing with Tempest, because I imagine developing something that is feminine centric and for other populations there, that stigma is something that really is important to deal with, because the cultural messaging and such comes at it from so many different angles. And
yeah, I hated it. I hated that all of a sudden, because I said I had a problem with alcohol, I was lumped into a different category. I hated what invitations that brought into my world for people to opine on what I should and shouldn't be doing. How many people suggested that I wasn't doing the right way because I wasn't using AA. It was a very shocking thing. And I think I also I would press that up against what it means to be anybody that's second to a non-white cis man. Like any person that is second to in our society or our globe is held out of power, is told that they can't trust themselves, basically is humble in the way that society asks them to be humble, to not be big, to not be too proud, to apologize to everybody. So the tenets of AA are feminizing, and here I am, and I am sick from this over feminization, I'm sick from these rules that society pushes on me, that tells me not to trust myself, not to speak up, not to be too proud, not to be too confident, to stay small, to know my place, all this stuff. And then it's more of that. And so I think that I would have never had words for that ever until I started to get sober. And the sobriety for me was acclaiming, it was stepping into, it was taking up more space, it was clearing out stuff, it was actually owning myself. That was what my journey was like. I didn't go through AA. And so I stumbled into this almost like claiming of agency. And then as I'm doing this, I get pushback that says, like, don't trust yourself. Don't, you're being, what you're doing is dangerous. You're an addict. Know who you are. And I hated it. I was again, without words, was just like enough. I don't want to. And so what I had created was absolutely like a response to that. It was like a place where people are like, the encouragement is not to trust yourself less, be afraid of yourself, follow some rules, shut up and listen, do this, apologize to everybody, stay small, be meek. That wasn't the answer. That was where we came from. And so it was to create a space where people were able to take back their power. That's the healing for a lot of people. And this isn't to say that there aren't overdeveloped egos or narcissism or people that need to have like this, like to have that counter of like, I need to actually, I need to break down some of this privilege that I haven't acknowledged and that I don't understand, or this sense of being God. But that's not where I was coming from. That's not where the people, that I work with come from. And so, yeah, it was an absolute response to that.
One size does not fit all.
No, absolutely not.
Who was this guy that, I don't know, this producer who was like abusing all these women and stuff like that? It seems
Harvey Weinstein. Yeah.
If he wasn't an alcoholic, I'd be shocked. But, he's the kind of guy that could probably use the kind of treatment you're talking about. Shut up and listen. I had a client one time, and he was really successful, really rich, and blah, blah, blah. He learned all my stuff really quick. Says, okay, I got it all. What else do I have to work on? Well, you're an asshole, and you really need to work on that. So just your practice is to go out and be kind to everybody, the person that you're busy to talk to, that's, pumping your gas or, at the grocery store or whatever, just practice. He was like, so I can see ego types that need that.
Yes.
And there's probably some, 8 women or something like that that could use that too. But generally speaking, I love that because one size does not fit all. And
That's right.
before, you know, I say our work, before this new emergent approach to recovery, you know, if you couldn't fit into AA, see ya.
Yeah. Yeah.
It was
Well, I think that still exists.
yes.
Right. I mean, that absolutely still exists. But yeah, and I think that's why the integral map is great. I mean, that's why we use it in our program. And it's because it allows people, even within this, there's a tone, there's a way we talk about things that is specific towards an archetype, but also the material and the path is unique as, you know, as we each are, because there is no two paths to recovery that will ever look the same.
And if I'm a man in recovery and I'm listening to you, I was like, well, God, I want some of that, you know. What, in other words, what, I mean, you've already touched on it, but specifically what, in the way that you see it, does your feminine approach to recovery, how does it differ from, and though you've already touched on it, the very kind of masculine 12-step, which came out of an evangelical Christian, you know, place, and it just reflects that. It's all over there. So how,
I mean, any spiritual path is going to ask for, you know, ego depletion and renunciation, asceticism, you know, like refuting of desires. It's like, basically, again, it just, you come into it and it assumes you have male privilege, and, you know, like that you can move freely through the world without, you know, fear of being raped, that you can use your voice, that you can say what you want, that you can, you know, like have what you want. And so I think like the, you know, there is, any spiritual path is drenched in that. It is because all of them historically were made to break down male privilege, right? And so for this, you know, it is like almost counter to that, which is take up space, use your voice, trust yourself, do not break down your ego further, which does not mean that you're not mindful of the ways that your ego leads. It just means that it's not about more self-flagellate. Like, that becomes pathology, right? That becomes like, if I'm taking myself down when I have no sense of self, then that's pathologizing something even further. And so I think there's that core tenet of like, this is the space where you turn it around and you work within those areas. But then also, it's not about list checking. It's not about doing, you know, like the masculine archetype, doing, forcing, single direction, you know, destruction. And this is fluidity, creation, community. And again, these are not like opposite. And also, like, it's not male, female, it's feminine, masculine. It's different energies, of which all of us, as you know, like all of us have both energies within us. And so it's like, it's also leaving it up to the person to trust them enough. I mean, I think that's what people are missing the most in our society, is that everybody is not to be trusted, right? Like, we can't trust ourselves, and we're not in touch with our like truest nature. And so it's allowing ourselves to lead the way to be able to find the right balance. And I think men need this, like, just as much as women do. I think men need nurturing. I mean, you like to be in touch with our emotions, to allow to be cyclical. I think all of us, everything is like overly masculine. It's toxic masculine. And so I think this isn't just for women and oppressed people. I think that the world needs this more gentler, kindler approach and more feminine energy to balance it out, not to, you know, cut off the masculine, but to balance the masculine.
Yeah, you know, and also often, you know, the journey or the descent into addiction, I mean, your ego and your sense of self is totally deconstructed, you know.
Yeah.
You've already been deconstructed. Thank you very much. You don't need to deconstruct it a little more. What you need to be is be reconstructed.
That's right. So then you have the chance to basically, I mean, I think for me, I balance everything. I think there's still ego, and a depleted ego is still ego, right? It's just running in the other direction. But I do think that there's a sense of building this sense of self up, claiming space with a worldly material self within the ego and the personality, so that you have something to break down. I mean, for me, it has been like the balance of building that up and then also minding the places where it runs out of control. And so I think it is not just that ego, that the answer is just like pump full of ego. I think the answer is being able to, I can take from these spiritual lineages that tell me to, you know, to like basically to become zero. But if I'm starting where I feel like zero and not the good kind, then it's not going to help me. It's not the right way in. I need a different way in. Does that make sense?
No, and it's being able to differentiate between the negative zero and the positive spiritual breakthrough zero.
Yeah, that's right.
Really important. It sounds kind of linguistically, it sounds similar, but there's definitely
so different.
so different. And one is well, one can be scary in the beginning, but it's actually it's bliss and recognition of who you really are. You know, the self is just, you're not losing anything. You're just gaining the rest of the universe. You know, like it just expands, and you still got your little self, and it doesn't go away. And when I had my big, one of my big awakenings, but when I first started using binaural brain entrainment technology, I've been suffering from major depression, suicidal depression, off and on for years. And I had this big, huge opening. But one of the pieces of wisdom that came out of it was like, oh, the ego is real.
Yeah.
You know, real as a rock or grass or anything else. And by pretending that it ain't real, oh boy, do we get in a lot of messes, you know, and
you allow it to lead when you don't acknowledge it.
Path, you know, bless all the Buddhists and everything. But what I've seen is that where you deny the reality of the ego ends up getting its butt kicked by the ego. So you have to acknowledge it and make it a functional, loving, forgiving, growing, malleable, shifting center of identity that allows you to, you know, read the newspaper and put away your iPhone and catch the bus, you know?
Yeah.
So, and it's a constant in process. And I think as we engage in practice, you know, the ongoing thing that keeps us awake, it's not enough just to, like, if I'd have had that big awakening experience back in, I don't know, 11, 12, 13 years ago, whatever it was, then, okay, I got it. I'd have gone right back to sleep thinking I'm really smart and continued on my way. But once you wake up, you know, you have to stay awake.
That's right.
And that takes a little bit.
It's hard. It's so hard.
You know, that's like, and you have the responsibility. I mean, it puts the power back in your, because nobody can meditate for you.
That's right.
Nobody can go to the gym for you. Nobody can say no to that particular whatever that you shouldn't be doing for you. You have to do it yourself. And when you you screw up, you can look in the mirror and go, "You idiot!" Fire yourself, then rehire yourself that afternoon, and do a better job. So, and we need folks. How do you guys do that? How do you guys find community in the work that you're doing? Because I think we definitely together.
Yeah, so a number of ways. One, just online community. I mean, it's not the community. It's not like necessarily the vehicle. I think it's the energy that you bring to it, the thoughtfulness and the intention that you bring to it. We as a company have spent a lot of time refining our community guidelines and community values of what's acceptable and what's not. These guideposts, and it's not a policed community. And there's just some rules and the community. And we've also done this really good job. We run schools, like sobriety schools, and we've had 14 of them now. And we are constantly transplanting this DNA and this ownership. But it comes back down to this idea of like self-management, which is creating the guideposts, creating the infrastructure, the spirit through which the community will connect, but then also allowing the community to lead and trusting the community to lead. So we have that. We also have smaller breakout groups, like processing groups within our program. And then we're really investing in real life. So we've had like 6 actual in real life meetings. We have 6 regular recurring meetings in different cities. And this year we're hoping to, like 10x that, if not more, to really create this. I mean, that's why AA persists, right? You can go anywhere, you can go to a meeting, and you find what you need. And so I think that the riddle is, how do you create that without the decentralized structure of AA that allows for atrocities to proliferate, right? Like, you're not policing like sexual harassment. You're not like people are kicked out of AA for using MAT or antidepressants. How do you create this this universal structure that allows for people to have autonomy and create a community, and not let that dogma end up just infecting it in different ways. I don't know. So
yeah, that's a real struggle, but you're asking all the right questions, and I think and we talk about an integral and of course metamodern thing that's coming on with the book, The Listening Society. I don't know if it's Hansi Freinacht. Anyway, I'm reading that now, and it's basically very integral without using all the jargon about how to do it.
What is it called?
The Listening Society.
Okay.
Yeah, and basically,
is it good?
Oh man, I've been reading it for a long time, but I just mark it all up, and so it's really hard for me to get through the thing.
I know.
I got the sequel, and I'm not even halfway through the prequel or the first one.
So funny, yeah.
And it's putting everything that we're saying and what you're saying into a larger political spectrum. And it says that the main job of government or the state is to make sure of the psychological welfare of each individual.
Yeah.
So when you can see that, you go, well, how do you do that? Well, it takes all four quadrants, and that's why welfare and so many things haven't worked, not because you shouldn't do it. It's just they're so partial, and leave out so many essential parts of the human being.
Yeah.
And we're talking about that. I noticed in our little company, iWake, I think we operate kind of what you're talking about. I'm officially the boss for tax purposes and stuff like that. And, I have some because I was a founder and but when the working together, we just work as a team. And, sometimes some people are in charge because it's their particular skill set and it's their project and they have the juice. And it's just kind of this self-organizing, changing role thing that hopefully needs met. And I think you have to get into, and I'm sure you're at this level, to this second tier as in spiral dynamics, or this integral level where you can start dealing with complexity, not as the enemy that has to be eliminated, and get really simplistic, because there's a simple answer to every problem that doesn't work.
Yeah.
You have
so you're a teal organization. You were the one that introduced me to Frederick, is it Laloux? I feel like we did a Skype call with him at some point from Reinventing Organizations or Reimagining Organizations. You know what I'm talking about?
I don't know, but doesn't mean it didn't.
Really? Yeah. Yes. It's a book it's basically a 4-quadrant approach to running a business.
That's right. And I met that guy in Hungary.
You did?
Yeah. Okay. Right.
And then I think we did a Skype call with him at your house.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's in a parallel universe or something.
Yeah. No, but it's interesting. You all were super into that book. You may not remember this, but you all were super into that book. And I couldn't bring myself to read it. Because I still have a mind of hierarchical organization, it needs to be run in a specific way. And that's about how I've been trained. And then just like a month ago, I was reading a book on holarchy, and I was reading an article on the way Spotify runs their business. And it led me to this book. And I was like, that's the book from the guy from John's house 4 or 5 years ago. And then I bought the book, and it's freaking incredible. It's called Reinventing Organizations, and it talks about this exactly, about how to have an integral, informed business. Yeah, and I think we just kind of stumbled onto it because we're all practicing, right? We're all, like the Marine Corps, everybody's a rifleman, or rifleman, and in our business, in theory, on a good day, we're all practitioners, Right. Start from that place that we're all doing a transformative practice that includes the body, the mind, the emotions, the shadow, the trauma, and the spiritual, depth. Right. So once we get that, and so it just kind of emerged, and maybe I was always not very good at being an employee. I had maybe two companies that I really worked well with the leadership, and the bosses accepted me as being different, and they liked my skill set, and we got along great, and they respected me. But generally speaking, and I don't know about you, but I would never go back to being employed. God, I'm unemployable. Yeah, I think I am too at this stage. That's really okay. But it was by going through this experience of what I didn't want. Oh, and I want to share this. I was thinking about it when I was meditating. Anyway, shouldn't have been, but I did. And this is not a commercial endorsement, this Telecaster Fender guitar head. I actually play a lot of guitar, especially love the blues. But I listened to a quote. Well, it was a recording of B.B. King, the late, great B.B. King. And he said, practice to play the music you want to listen to. Mm-hmm. Okay. Practice to play the music you want to hear. And so I said, well, God, it's like practice to become the person that you want to become. That's right. Do you want to be fit and vital? By the way, you look great. You look like you're in great shape, and you must be taking care of that stuff. You haven't aged today. And, no, seriously. The picture in Vogue, by the way, was fantastic. Oh, right. That's exciting. But you remember, or maybe you don't. You sent me an email. I lost my hearing in my right ear in February, full deafness in my right ear, and I have regained most of it. I have tinnitus, but it's just so funny because I was so stressed and I wasn't doing my stuff. I was not taking care of myself, and it was a nerve issue, it was a stress issue. It's now a physical issue. And I think it's, anyway, yeah. I mean, it's just like when you were talking about your heart attack, it's not the same thing, but it's so fragile. It just can go away at any second, if we don't take care of it.
Mm-hmm.
So.
And we just have to keep practicing through the hard times. When I got back from the hospital, it's like we were out the next week on the tennis court. I love tennis too. And it was like, I could go like 10 minutes.
Yeah.
Exhausted. And then
yeah.
Heart doing all this weird shit. Am I going to have another heart attack? You don't know. Can I lean over? Can I trust the whole process? And, the message was, even in the emergency, not in the emergency room, but in ICU, I was listening to the brain entrainment stuff. And interestingly enough, it has nothing to do with our conversation, but it's just one of those cool footnotes. Right after they got me to the ICU, I had like 5 hours of incredible spiritual and intellectual and emotional clarity.
Mm-hmm.
I said, am I getting ready to die? Because sometimes before people die, they say you have these moments of kind of waking up. And I said, well, it's a good way to go. And then after about 5 hours, I started feeling like a person who just had a massive heart attack. But it was so clear. And a lot of the emotional, relational stuff that had been going on, I was able to clear up, and I was able to see very clearly what I was here for and what my work had been about, was about, and I was just like free,
Yeah.
all the baggage. It was wonderful. And it was just one of those, wonderful previews that sometimes we get of the possibility of what it's like.
Those moments of clarity.
Yeah. And then we got to practice.
And then we forget it all.
That is the practice, not to forget.
Yeah.
So Doug, we've been yakking for a while. Do you have any questions or comments at this point?
Yeah, it becomes a part of your pattern, integrated into the rest of it. It's adding a drop of color to merge with the rest that's already there. Even if you think you've forgotten, it becomes a part of you.
Yeah.
In those moments of clarity.
Yeah.
I imagine, Holly, that the structure, the really kind of lack of structure, the trusting people to run communities and co-create them in a way that resonates with their own values and things that are being established is an essential part of the recovery process too, being empowered to do that and to trust themselves, to listen to their voices, to speak up and create the rules, as opposed to that kind of hierarchical structure that so many of us exist in. I think that's a beautiful and powerful thing. And
yeah, I think it is. It's one of those things. It's really hard to. I think it's really hard when you're building anything to like trust that trusting people is actually a better organizational skill. But it is. I mean, it's everything else. Otherwise, you have to create all these processes and overhead and chaos. And so I think, yeah, it is. It's kind of the only way, which is to allow people up to their, there has to be, again, guardrails and shared agreements and values and all sorts of stuff. But I think allowing people to make decisions for what actually impacts them is huge.
Yeah. And also, but I think as part of that, because, when you're talking about teal organization or second tier or metamodern, is be able to take the good stuff of the past.
Yes, to transcend and include.
Yeah. Right. So sometimes you may just need to take names and kick ass and be, a really decisive, powerful leader, because that's right. That's what the moment needs.
Requires. That's right.
Right. You can't, I got to be all this. And
it's not everybody agreeing all the time, right? It's not like everybody in constant consensus. It's giving power where power is due and allowing people to make decisions where decisions need to be made. But that also means some decisions are made singularly by me and another team of people. But it's not the team of people pushing it down totally through layers where people at the front line are unable to actually, they're just basically given a set of things to do. I think it's a balance between yeah, I mean, what I like in certain situations, just what I say goes, right? Like, and in certain situations, other department heads, what they say just goes, but not at the cost of the power that individuals feel in their roles. Otherwise, people aren't enjoying their role. You know, people aren't going to enjoy what they do if they have no say and they just have all these things pushed down at them from the top. And so I think that's a fine balance to strike, right, between whatever, like a green organization, I guess, where everybody's just in this constant like state of, we all have to agree on it.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
I imagine it can be such an important part of the recovery process to say, I can be trusted to do this. I can step into my power. I do have a voice and I can express it and allow it to be heard. Often for the first time, it's a beautiful opportunity. And
yeah, it is. And that is part of it, which is like trusting yourself, owning what you believe, taking risks, all of that.
Yeah. And when you get into a flow state, say as a leader, as you are, these things just happen naturally. You kind of know when to back off, when to, kind of
maybe
bring somebody forward or get somebody to shut up.
No, I don't think it's a flow state. I think it's a lot of work. I mean, we have 30 people at our company, and I think all it is for me is running to tend one thing to the other. I mean, my job is people. And so I think, and I make terrible mistakes all the time that disempower people. I think that's the part of it too, is that it's a practice of learning and listening. Oh, shoot, did that make you feel terrible? Oh God, okay, I'm not going to do that again. Am I allowed to say no about this? Like, it's just, I think it's a beautiful mess, of learning. We don't know how to do these things because we don't, for us, our mission statement for our company is putting people at the center of their recovery, right? Like, that's it. It is not about anyone else but you. You are empowered. Use this power, use this agency. And we run things in a way that is not representative of what society says to us, right? Society does not say you have full agency over your life. And so we are in this way at the front of the company leading with a very different paradigm. And then in the back of the company, if it's leading with a paradigm that matches like orange or green, right? Then we're broken, right? All of us that are coming into this organization are coming from everyone that works there is coming from an orange informed organization, right? They're coming from this like rules based and hierarchical meritocracy type formation. And so I have to break that. There's just some times where I'm just like, no, when I say go, it's like, why are they not respecting, I just want to be a dictator. And that will never work. And so it's just learning that I am totally informed by a workplace and a workforce that is reflective of what most society is. And I'm trying to build something that's not reflective of that on the front. And to do that, it's just going to take some time, on how to, I've watched people I've watched leaders my whole life. I've read Elon Musk's book and Steve Jobs' book. And I mean, these are the people I've idolized and revered. And I can't be, an asshole and run my company like them. I have to run it in a way that's not, companies aren't typically run.
So could you describe what that would be? I mean, what kind
of
leader?
Which way?
Well, what kind of leader do you see yourself? Like, you can't be like all these guys, and you have your own model you're working on. Like I said, practice to hear the music, to play the music you want to hear.
Yeah.
The leader that you want to be. What does that kind of leadership look like?
Well, I think it's doing things that I enjoy and that I'm good at, and making sure that people within my organization are doing the same. That I don't feel like I need to micromanage or know everything that's going on, that I can trust people to make their own decisions and allow them to check in with me on agreed upon places. But that I am not that basically I'm not sitting on the top in one layer and then there's a layer and then there's a layer and then there's a layer, and that things are dictated down through a dominator hierarchy, that things are actually moving, I think in a way where there is power centers, and especially where where there needs to be power, and also that there's cross collaboration, right? Like that people are talking to one another. People aren't afraid to take risks. People aren't afraid to fail. I think that's, I mean, I don't know exactly. I'm learning that. I'm learning how. I have no idea, because I've never built an organization before, nor have I ever worked in an organization where I was intentionally trying to not replicate, or it was intentionally trying to not replicate every business organization that exists for the most part.
Yeah.
So I don't know, figuring it out.
Yeah, good. You're working on it. It's and it's all I can say is thank God I have Pam. She so helps me. Oh my God, I'm so good at and blah blah blah. Minutia of IT and God, just to run. Well, we have a technology business, and that alone is extremely complex. But then this new, and like when we have meetings, I don't know if it's this way, but we're not even on the same continent. Most of us, I mean, we're scattered all over the world, and so it just, man, there's just so many complexities and so many things that we've never dealt with in the past.
Yeah.
And just maybe little tweaks here and there can, begin to set new patterns. But it's definitely, I'd say maybe going back to music, it's like you have a song that you guys want to play together, but then at some point you just go into improvisation. But if you played enough together, it's like there becomes this individual mind becomes the group mind, and you know how to play off each other and everything. Magical things happen. Then you go back into the structure, and in the particular song. But there's a way of just trusting and letting things turn into what they need to be. And of course you have to be awake, and of course you make a lot of mistakes too. But when we're talking about flow states aren't easy. They're easy when you're in them, but it's not easy to regularly get there. That takes a lot of hard work.
No, as a writer, I can attest to that. I can't.
Gosh, well, all three of us here are writers. How's that going?
Oh, I have 5 more pages. It's been through edit after edit after edit. It's
good for you.
18 months of work. We'll probably be finished tonight, and then one last and then copy edits. So
congratulations.
Thank you.
It's a big freaking deal. I had a book I was done, had about 40-50 pages done. Then I had a heart attack, and I just been and my wife's mother in Louisiana. We live in 2 places now.
Yeah.
Louisiana, southern and northern Louisiana, and here in Utah, southern Utah. And so it's just been, and now I want to get back to the project, but my ideas have evolved in the meantime.
But that's exciting, isn't it? Yeah. The end of my book looks so different from the beginning of my book, and I've had to go back to the beginning because your ideas evolve. You don't stay the same.
Yeah. Boy, writing is got a whole nother
horrible thing. I love it so much, but I hate it. Ugh.
It's terrifying.
I have been putting off writing this final chapter, and I finally started on it last night, and then it took me an hour. I've been thinking about it, and then I wrote the 3 pages to start it. It's going to be an 8-page chapter. It's the end, and I was like, it came out how I wanted to, but the amount of terror I had around being able to put those words together is just, I mean, have you read Stephen Pressfield's book, The War of Art?
Yep.
Yeah.
I've
read a lot of his other books. I love his historical fiction books, but I'm aware.
Historical fiction books. Yeah. He, I mean, Doug, that book has changed my life.
I swear by it. That's one of the most incredible books. I go back to it over and over.
Yeah.
Okay. So what's the one main thing that Stephen Pressfield said that comes to mind about writing as we have this conversation from his book?
Doug, why don't you take it?
Well, the book is all about all the ways resistance tries to get us not to do our work. And sometimes you have to do it anyway, show up and do it anyway, and face that fear. And, all the voices telling you that you can't do it and you're not good enough and you need to, go clean the kitchen instead. You need to just ignore those things and sit down and do it and allow it to be bad, but do it anyway, because a real professional shows up and does the job and treats it that way.
Yes.
Yeah. What do you write, Doug?
I've done a lot of fiction. I wrote actually romance novels for a while, a little bit of science fiction,
Nice.
and am working on a project that's been, well, sitting on the back burner now for a while, but it's called The Dharma of Harry Potter, and it sort of introduces Buddhism and meditation and some of the central ideas through the lens of the Harry Potter saga, using parallel examples to illustrate the themes.
That's amazing. Oh my God.
Oh, seriously, right? And of course, in I Awake, we have to write, letters, emails, and instruction manuals and all this stuff. And Doug's a wonderful writer. And I used to have to do all that myself because I was the writer, was my little thing. And now we have Louis Santos, another.
Yeah, I know Louis.
Just emerging as a terrific writer. He's written some blogs.
It's not surprising.
Holy cow, no, it's not surprising. So now I have at least, and Heidi's beginning to write really well. And anyway, so we have this multiple, maybe we're polishing each other, like stones in a polishing machine or something. But yeah, Doug's that was one of that first attracted me, his emails. My God.
His 4-page letter.
Yeah, it's a brilliant piece of work here. So, and I'll pick up Integral Recovery every once in a while.
It's an incredible book.
Oh, good.
I know.
How did I write that? I could never do that again. And then all the bullshit starts,
But then you do it again. I know. Every time I write something good, I'm always like, well, that's the pinnacle of my writing. We'll never be able to recreate something like that again. It's so surprising. It is so surprising when you write something well and then you do it again.
Yeah. I can tell that writing is probably one of your major paths in life.
Let's hope so, for all it's taken up in this one.
I was listening to an interview, a guy who wrote a book on character, and he said there was back in, I think it was the early 1900s, late 1800s, there was a very progressive women's college called Holyoke. Mm-hmm. You would find out what you're worst at. Okay, with say math, you just not good at math. That would be your major. So they would take the subject that you really didn't shine at, that you were really lame, and make that be your major, because you're going to learn more by majoring in that, more character, more, struggle, more. But people would freak out today if you did that. But what a brilliant idea, of taking on that weak spot and making that your focus and your strength.
I love that.
Yeah. So way to go, Holyoke, if you're still around. Well, cool. Anything else you guys would like to comment? Oh, we haven't talked about meditation and practice, which is the name of this podcast is Meditate on This. So
yeah.
So how does that fit into your to the work that you do with others, your own life?
We do it at work. We do it before certain meetings. It's a consistent practice. It's the thing in our school that I consistently tell, like, if you do anything, pick up a meditation practice. And I think every addiction recovery modality has a form of meditation in it, because it's so key. And then I practice, like, every day. I do I just did a 20-minute, I did a specific 20-minute breathing exercise. I really like Kundalini. I'm a teacher of Kundalini yoga. I really love Kundalini yoga, but I mix it up. I do all sorts of things. I do transcendental, Vipassana. I do Awake. I do any sort of guided meditation. I mean, I'll do anything. And I find that I'm very, again, cyclical with it. I'm not disciplined in that every day I do the same one. It's more that I'm constantly checking in with what I need, and I do what I need. And I find that that's very sustaining for me.
Hey, have you ever used Stealing Flow?
I tried it. That wasn't my favorite. Is that awful? My favorite is always going to be, oh my God. Well, I can never remember the damn name of it. It's the one that I use most though. Not Profound Joy. It's
digital. Oh gosh, help me out here, Doug. What is it? Profound Joy.
It's not Profound Joy.
Or
Euphoria. Deep Euphoria is my favorite. It's so good. Yeah, that's my favorite. And then I also always do, whenever I'm on a plane, I always do that delta wave of harmonic resonance. Yeah. And I love the addiction one too. That's one of my favorite ones. It's a nice, That one really gets me. But yeah, deep euphoria. I started doing it in Italy when, like in 2014. It just reminds me of being in Rome, and it reminds me of like walking down like cold, rainy streets, like, or like, you know, like these ruins in the cold rain. And it's just such a beautiful track.
Yeah, that's helped me through some really dark episodes.
Yeah, I bet.
Yeah, one thing that I was mentioned, Stealing Flow. By the way, Doug created those, and they help me in my reading and focus. And I had to tweaking my practice. I have to get into more reading. I'm going to read 2 hours a day, and it was like that was not working. So I said, okay, I broke it down to a half-hour a day, and that became doable.
Mm-hmm.
So, and I'll put on entrainment tracks to get my brain in the zone and get my pen ready, because you know the only books I read are the ones in hard copy, or ones that need to be marked up. The other ones I do a lot of audio books. Yeah. And if you get an audio book that's really, really good, okay, I'll get the I don't use Kindle, I just get the book and work on that. So that's been helpful and getting me over my resistance. And we're having a get together of all the iWake people this summer. So, and
how amazing.
Yeah. God. And I've like tracked it. I don't know how it's happened, but the people, I mean, that's a secret of my showing up to work, is I really love the people I work with.
Yeah.
They're my favorite people. You
work with amazing people.
I really, really, really care about them, and I enjoy them. And we've gone through ups and downs and struggles, and we support each other. And it's just, anyway, so my plan is, as soon as I get through that, then I'll get back to writing the next book. And,
I look forward to reading it.
Yeah, the idea was,
and the Harry Potter book too.
Oh, right! I love her. What a genius that woman is. I was on a cruise one time, and I didn't have any book, and it was like in my room there was a cabin. There was like the third portion of Harry Potter, and I'm going, I don't know, just being judgmental and stupid. And I picked it up. I got lost in it, man.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, same.
Oh, well, look. Any closing, anything, Doug or Holly or John or
Holly? Where can people find you and find out more about what you're doing? Where should people visit you?
Yeah, jointempest.com is where our program is. We also have a online media site called thetemper.com. And then I mostly write these days because of the book. I mostly write on Instagram. My handle is @Holly, just my name.
All right.
Okay.
Thank you. It's so good seeing you both. Thank you for having me.
It's a privilege, an honor, and a lot of fun too. So thank you, and we will be connected. And we are connected, even when we not think we're connected. We're connected. So anyway,
yeah.
Hey everybody, God bless, and I'll see you next time. And
all right.
If you need anything from us, just let us know.
Absolutely, always. Thank you. Bye, both of you.